What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Blade Dive, presented by Prenoth. This is episode 34, part 1. That's right, it's going to be a two-part episode. There is a lot to discuss. It's a banger of an episode. Rydd and Day Franzen sitting down to talk about all things them, because they're people outside of the snow industry, as well as their careers and where they've come from and where they are now. It's a really great conversation. As I've mentioned before, this whole thing unfolds organically, and the guest list is definitely more of a buy-in than it is a credential to participate in this process. But we just don't talk about fluffy clouds and rainbows and unicorns the whole time. We definitely get into the nitty-gritty of what it is to be an operator, and that means taking a blade dive every once in a while, because it's a lot of aha moments and some fantastic realizations of what it is to operate. If you don't know Day and Jay, these two are big players, but they'll be the first people that will be the most approachable for anything that you want to ask them. Co-creators, co-founders of Kingvale Terrain Park Project, and was for a very long time a standard. I mean, an incredible output for a product that people just wanted to be a part of because it was snowboarding, not wrapped around a resort package. It was very much their idea, their baby, and they made it happen. Both of these individuals have had large impacts on the industry, have worked at places like Corinthia, Heavenly, Mammoth, Diamond Peak, Pistenbully. And the stories in this conversation are the opinions. I don't think that I will ever forget this conversation. As I told both of them when we were recording it, you have this idea, this manifestation of what you want something to be, as I know they can relate, and to sit down with them and talk about everything that they ever did. And I still think there's more to cover with them too. Was a dream. It was a treat. I really enjoyed it, and I think you will too. Couple of housekeeping things quickly before we dive into the interview. Episode 34 is sponsored by Mount Bachelor. I'm so stoked to have their support. And if you specifically have never visited the Pacific Northwest, Bend and Mount Bachelor in the area it surrounds is absolutely gorgeous. If you're looking for a job, you can find these jobs at mtbachelor.com. There you can find their jobs link and locate the descriptions for all of the opportunities they have available for operators and terrain park day staff. In part 2 of episode 34, I'm going to have the chance to sit down with the senior slopes manager, Dustin Smith, to discuss all those opportunities in detail and discuss what it's like to work for him as a boss, as well as what it's like to work at Mount Bachelor and live in Bend. So you're not going to want to miss that. If you're not already following us on social media, you can find us via our handle, which is @TheBladeDive. Send us a message. You can do that via a direct message on social media, or you can send us an email. Any inquiries that you've got, any questions, if you're curious, if you'd like to place an ad yourself for a job, you can send us an email at thebladedive@gmail.com. Okay, you know the deal. If you're at home right now, grab your favorite drink, kick your feet up, and if you're in the machine anywhere in the world, turn up the volume.
Just go ahead and give it the juice.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another day, another episode of the Blade Dive. With me today in the virtual booth are definitely two legends that I'm excited to have them in the virtual booth with me. It's kind of heavy, definitely weighted towards the California side, but I have Rydd and Day Franzen, and if you don't know either of these individuals, we're talking about Kingvale Terrain Parks. We're talking about pre-Mountain Creek days, Pistenbully, development of the Park Pro machine. We're talking about mountain high contributions, super park presence, pretty heavy resume with things that they've accomplished in their career, but they're also human beings, which is why we're talking to them as well. So without further ado, welcome to the show, gentlemen. Thanks for being a part of the first joint effort, I should say, too.
Thanks for having us, Parker. It's great to be here.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. It's amazing anybody actually wants to hear what we had to say, but it's appreciated. And Thank you for doing this, man. It's nice to give the operations side of the industry a voice.
I agree, man. I definitely agree. Well, it's an honor to have you both. And you know the deal, we kicked this thing off as you guys have been in tuned, and I would say I've been grateful for just staying in touch with both of you over the course of the existence of this thing. But we kick it off with a special guest question. You both cool with that?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Sick. So, question number one, first special guest question comes from Mr. Elijah Hamilton. I will go ahead and play it for you now. Here we go.
What's up, Blade Divers? Parker, thanks for having me again. Appreciate the opportunity to irritate your guests. Day, Jay, super stoked to listen. I miss you guys, and I hope you're well. I have a few questions about the Kingvale days. Did your experiences there carry into your current roles or roles that you've had since then, as far as, management and leadership roles? And Day, I also want to know, what's your record for number of clothing layers to keep warm in the state of Vermont? And tell the listeners what a skexy is and why you got that nickname. And Jay, on the opposite end of the spectrum, what's the minimal amount of clothing that you would wear when you were a cyclist? Hope you guys are doing really well. Can't wait to see you soon.
Let's start with the light end, I think. If you think about the places I've worked, it's been like the Mid-Atlantic or Southern California or Northern California, some Mount Hood in the summers. So I hate to say it, but I don't like the cold. And going to Vermont and seeing negative 35 on a regular basis was numbing. And it took me a long time to get used to that, and I don't even know if I ever really got used to it, but I would literally double up sweatshirts and jacket over, and I there may have been multiple beanies at times. I mean, it's a cold place up there.
Yeah, I multiple beanies, layers. I can honestly say that I've never been to that. I've gone on record before saying I've never been up there. My wife has. I haven't. But I've never been there. I think I probably did. You remember that movie, The Christmas Story? So like, was that you? Like when the kid was walking out looking like a marshmallow man? Like you couldn't even move your limbs. You're wearing that much shit.
No, I still got the job done, of course, but but he's referring to the Dark Crystal, which is really dating both of us. But the Dark Crystal? It's like a puppet Jim Henson movie from I think the 80s, and it's kind of evil, and there's these evil characters in it called Skeksis, and they have like huge amounts of layers of clothes over their shoulders, and he would always joke me because I was like doubled sweatshirts, and so I'm gonna say maybe 5 layers was my max.
That's a shit ton of clothes, man.
Well, if you go long johns, t-shirt, maybe a long sleeve, and then 2 hoodies, or you can take a hoodie out and throw the jacket over the hoodie.
So are you counting layers as articles of clothing on your body, or are you counting?
Yeah.
Okay, so like I look at layers as long johns, and then pants, and then snowboard pants over top of that would be 3 layers to me. I don't know, Jay, correct me if I'm wrong there, if I'm being dumb, but
No, I think you're both making the same point there.
We're both being silly.
Regardless, it was freezing there, and it took a lot of layers for me to survive it.
Yeah.
Trust me, he doesn't like the cold, man. All the years we lived together, little guy likes it warm in the house.
So you're the one turning up the heat, huh?
Yeah.
Sweet. What about this cyclist thing? I didn't know you were the avid biker, but that could also be a joke too.
No, there was a short, brief stint back in like 7th or 8th grade where I was on a cycling team for a very short period of time, and
what's a short period of time, Jay?
That was like maybe the year or whatever, but we used to, not big by most people's standards probably, but for me it was insane, riding like 50, 60 miles a day in New Jersey, and I'd come home and eat my dinner in the bathtub and stuff, but I never wore the skimpy clothes. I'd wear the cycling shorts, and then I'd put regular shorts over them because I was always just, I couldn't do it.
No unitard.
No, not a full one piece. I wasn't so aerodynamic. I never got into shaving my legs or nothing like a lot of the dudes did.
Are those shorts padded? I don't even know what those shorts would feel like. I've never been there.
Well, at least back when I used to ride, yeah, it was kind of like the maxi pad in there. It was kind of comfy.
Yeah, you need that on the undercarriage.
Yeah. Well, if you wear just underwear and you ride that far, then you shave your balls and stuff. And
so for a 360-day cycle, that was it, and you were out of that.
Pretty
about
much,
a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was awesome though. I mean, it was interesting because you ride so close together, like they do, cyclists, and when you crash into each other. So there'd be like 5 of us piled up in a busy intersection in New Jersey, and just people honking at us and yelling at us and stuff. It was pretty hilarious.
That sounds amazing, Jay.
Yeah, it was great.
That's 100% why the Blade Dive exists, so we can find out that Jay Rydd was on a cycling team.
Yeah, I used to ride horses too as a little boy. And
what?
Ribbons for jumping and stuff. Oh yeah.
Oh
wow.
Yeah, you and I share that one. I also got stuck on a horse as a child.
Competitive horse jumping, or was it like something that you guys were both into? We're massive tangent here.
Oh, just like the normal like little kid riding and competing in like weekend events and jumping over rails and stuff like that. I rode English and Western, but I competed English. So fancy little all the get up and all that lame stuff. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. My story's similar. Lots of riding camps as a little kid. My mom was an avid horse person, and you're gonna love this. Go.
I will say though, my oldest daughter, she'll be 8 in October, and she just went to her first horse camp this summer for a week, and every day was the best day ever. So
right,
little girls love horses.
Just to kind of circle back and preface it, I have always looked at the two of you as kind of like, if I was to make the analogy of a band, it's like Robert Plant and John Bonham. And, you got to have like the beat, and then you got to have the vocal. And without either one, there's not really a song to dance to. So I thought Elias' question was spot on with things that kind of maybe have transcended over to what you do now. But what would you say? I mean, are you still valuing that time that you spent together there and how it's maybe moved on to or invested in your future?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. Like I'll say hands down, like I learned so much from what we did. We both did, of course, but partnering with Day, we'll probably get more into the story of what we did together and how we met, but like I learned so much from Day. Just I spent my entire life learning how to do everything by myself without needing anyone's help. I grew up as a shy kid, and so just never wanted to ask for any help. Didn't want to need anyone. Wanted to make sure that later in life I'd never needed anything from anyone. And the biggest thing I learned from Day as soon as I met him was knowing people is a good thing, and asking for help is a good thing, and accepting other people's help is a good thing. But you get a lot further by knowing people and building good relationships.
I don't know. First, I gotta say, what did you say, Bonham and Plant?
Yeah, I said Robert Plant and John Bonham, but I mean, you might use a different analogy.
Well, no, those are very kind words. Working with Jay, it was a completely two-way street, man. Because the thing we both realized, I think, immediately was he had skills that I didn't, and I had skills he didn't. And we realized if we put those skills together, it kind of took everything for us to a next level.
Mm.
Yeah. So, and the things we learned at Kingvale though were, I mean, priceless. Him and I have both had many conversations where we felt like we learned more in those 5 or 6 years of doing that than we did in the years we spent at all the other resorts we were at.
Wow.
Yeah, I would agree.
But we had to.
Yeah, because you were not like you were doing it as you went. Maybe you would describe it that way, but from what was being produced as with respect to just content and media and things that were coming out of it. That's why I positioned it as, I was talking to Matt Malilly earlier today, and I threw that analogy out there at him, and he was like, dude, it's pretty good. I said, okay, I'll probably run with that during the show. But you know, like when you're building something and it's a band, or it's a terrain park, or it's a department, or it's an organization, whatever it is, I've always viewed whatever the team effort can be, it's got to gel. It's got to gel really well. And if it doesn't gel, then you got to figure out what other song you're going to make so that you can all dance to it together. But yeah, I just, you know, I do like Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin too.
When we first met, we were both working at Mammoth, and it was, you know, we were getting along and stuff. But the first time we were ever in Cats together, we were in South Park at Mammoth. It was preseason. There wasn't much park, and we had to groom the park together. He started at the top of the park. I started at the bottom of the park. We crossed in the middle, and I finished his work and he finished my work. And it was the first time for both of us. So we had a long conversation afterwards. First time for both of us that neither one of us was like, what the fuck was he doing up here? Why did he do it like that? Da, da, da. Like everything he had done made sense to me, and I finished his work and ditto for him. And that was it. You know, it was cool.
Do you remember we got in trouble for that?
Oh yeah.
For working together?
Well, because we would groom that park in half the time that it had ever been done at the time, I guess. I don't know. We would get yelled at repeatedly that we finished too early, and we'd be like, go out there and see if you can find one stitch missing. And
so back then was that was the park managed then by an over-encompassing like grooming and park manager, or was it just the park manager at that point in time? Had it split at that point at Mammoth?
Yeah, but the head groomer was not. He was. Well, it was both of them, honestly. They were upset that we didn't spend more time, and we said, well, we don't want to burn diesel for nothing. If you've got projects, we'll do them. But
yeah, I got told you need to work full shifts, and it was pre-season, and I was like, if it takes me all shift to maintain the park we have now, how will I have time to maintain the rest of the park when we build it later in the season?
Oh, that's a good point.
And I had quit my job at Diamond Peak as slopes manager to go down there, so I was the manager before that, and I don't like to waste time.
Well, I interviewed you.
Yeah, totally.
Wait, you interviewed him for the job at Mammoth?
Yeah, you came to the job fair, right?
Yeah, totally.
And I tried to talk you out of it.
Yeah, you're like, why do you want to come work here?
I was like, you already have a great job, man. What are you thinking?
Yep.
Dude, well, was it the mystique of Mammoth? Was that why? Like
it was just the young, hungry park guy in me, because I was doing my thing up there, and Mammoth had all the mystique and stuff, and I wanted what I was doing at the time. You know, being slopes manager at the time and being young, all I wanted to do was build park, and the longer I had my job, the less time I spent building park, and I wasn't getting paid. I was on salary, so by the time I was building any park, I was already way past getting paid to do it, you know, hours wise. And so I wanted to pursue that, and I wanted to prove to myself that I was just as good as anyone else out there who was doing it. You know, that's the young, hungry guy in me. Young being 29 when I left.
Day's got a bit of a history with like declining jobs for people, or trying to convince people to go do other things. Day. Oh, we'll get into that for sure.
Well, I don't usually fire people. I just convince them that they need to be somewhere else.
Yeah, and sometimes that's really good advice too.
Well, and most of the time, if it's somebody that I don't gel with, they go on to do great things.
Yeah.
You know, they find their niche, you know.
Well, I know we'll get into more of the, you know, the deeper aspects of those topics, but the meat and potatoes, so to speak. But I do want to thank Elia really quick for the question and contributing to the episode. Huge shout out to him. Did not know about the horses or the cycling. That was rad.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have definitely done you know, a lot. And in your careers, and as I was, gosh, I kind of had to throw an audible for timing this week to piece together some questions that kind of were in line with what we were going to discuss. And, you know, I don't want to dive into the chronological thing. We kind of touched on it a little bit, but I really want to hit right out of the gate one of the main things that I continue to kind of hit home on this podcast, because it's so cool that we've created, and I say we because it's definitely an effort from the guest. It's an effort from me, the community, to be able to come together to produce stuff like this. But you guys were legitimately a part of the humble beginnings of Cutters Camp. As that event evolves, as I know it probably will, we have just all endured this crazy portion of history over the last 18 months. And, you know, a lot of sometimes what's discussed is, well, how are we going to learn from our negatives there? But what I guess I'm trying to do is, during those 18 months, what do you guys think were the positive effects that it could have potentially had on something like Cutters Camp? And maybe has it potentially shown us the real value of seat time with respect to just training people? And I know this is a lengthy question, but I would really be interested to know how that event moves forward as is or as was, and whether or not that digital piece is really relied on for future endeavors with Cutters.
Why don't you take that one, Jay?
All right. You know, it's tough. I've been having this conversation, or versions of it, quite a bit lately, not about Cutters Camp, but just, you know, takeaways from COVID and stuff, and all these things. I think there's been some good and some bad with all of it. Some of the benefits of some of the online stuff is just the fact that you can get more people involved in some of the online stuff. Like, you know, normally most resorts won't send anybody, or maybe just one person to a place like Cutters Camp, or even an NSAA trade show or something, you know. But also, I'm guilty of it. I didn't go to the virtual NSAA thing this winter. You know, I laughed about it and didn't do it. But I also am very thankful that Sam Magazine's been putting on the huddles and stuff that they've been doing. And most of the ones that I've been a part of on that, I regretfully haven't been able to attend all of them, but most of them have been very helpful and stuff. So I think those are great forums to get people exposed who normally may not get the opportunity to get sent somewhere. But also so much gets lost in them as well. Whereas, you know, Zoom, we all know the downfalls of Zoom by now with the dominant mic thing. No one ever gets to say what they actually want to say.
No.
You're continuously cut off. But then also the sidebar conversations, the hallway conversations, the conversations over dinner and drinks afterwards, or before the event, or, you know, just the bonding that goes on the trip to the Cutters Camp or the trade show or whatever it is. Even if it's in your region, just driving 45 minutes to a different resort with your coworkers, and you're not going to the job site, you're going to sort of just do your thing. You know, that's the stuff that gets lost. And some of the virtual cat training and stuff that's going on, I'm thankful to see that stuff happening, but it can't be the only thing.
There's no substitute for seat time, in my opinion. I completely agree with you, Jay. I think that it's great to see it out there and try to attract more people into the industry, but they've still got to get behind the sticks and learn it. You know, I wish that there were more programs that actually gave you stick time. Cutters Camp really, I mean, Jay, how many times did we put a guy in a cat for 45 minutes and that's his first time?
That's a great question. Yeah.
And we just gave him a learner's permit to go back and build park, you know, like, after 45 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, we could all, you know, and Elia and everybody, that all of us that were a part of Cutters Camp from the early days and into the later days, and I'm sure it's the same with everybody involved in it now. It's got its ups and downs as well, and every year we would be excited to go and then apprehensive to go. And so on the way home, you're just like, oh, it needs to change. It's not doing this. It's not doing that.
Yeah.
Bottom line, it did a lot of good. It
Oh,
always
yeah.
bothered us a lot that a lot of people got sent there by their general managers and stuff, thinking that they were going to get taught how to build park while they were there. And everyone who's been there knows that that's not what it is.
No, well, I wasn't. In no way am I trying to bag on it. I'm just saying that I wish there was more of a program that actually gave people stick time. You know?
Well, here's one too. Like the what about from the manufacturer's standpoint? You know, because they're like Jay, you just mentioned too, like and Day too. There's a digital component out there that's accessible for furthering education, familiarizing yourself with the equipment, but it doesn't necessarily equate to stick time. I would personally, I mean, and I have no problem going on the record and saying that I know that there are people that are procured for each brand to be able to go and provide that kind of service. I just know from my experience in the power equipment industry side of it with Skag lawnmowers that training people on equipment, whether it's tearing down the pump and motor or it's putting somebody in the seat and training them to do something with the snow, it's very hard to activate someone to go out into the field, and you're spending that money with the clientele, with your customer, and you've only got one or two people that are doing that versus where you have this whole umbrella of an industry that you're trying to train. And then the latter part of that is what happens when you've trained everybody at a certain resort, you know, and you've run out of people to really kind of hit that digital piece with, you've reached that cap. You know, everybody at the resort's gone through the maximum amount of digital programming that you can go through. And then
what a great problem to have.
You know, right?
You mean
Yeah.
You mean like returning employees that come back year after year?
Exactly.
No turnover?
Exactly.
Good. Yeah.
Or you've got people who don't come back, and then you're continually having to send someone out to train and refresh. So it's like the exhaustion or the lack of, I guess, is what I was trying to land the plane to get the point.
It's got to start somewhere. So so you're right about those points, but it's got to start somewhere. And so we used to, like, we would drive home from Cutter's Camp and just always want to try to make it better. And so we would try to come up with plans, like, is there a way we could get both Prenoth and Pistenbully to leave their cats there longer and have a camp after camp, where guys would stay for a week and ride and groom the parks at Timberline, stuff that's build and maintain stuff that people are actually going to ride every day. And because that was one of my sticking points with Cutter's Camp. We all of us, when we weren't with the campers, we always talked about how to improve things. And one of my things always was, people go there and they want to push snow, they want to push snow, they want to push snow. 90% of what you do in a park is maintaining what's already been built.
Yeah.
And so much of the time at Cutter's Camp over the years was spent without tillers on.
Yeah.
It's like, how about grooming patterns, guys?
It all just comes down to money. It's because it costs a lot to do those things, and and snowcat companies don't have tons of money, but they do okay, of course, but they're not just going to loan out cats all the time. And who can afford to lease 10 for 2 weeks? It's a struggle.
And how do you get resorts to pay the amount of money it would cost?
Right.
The whole thing of compensating people for what you're getting, like the people who would stay on to do the training, they're sharing the skills that they've spent their careers learning.
Yep.
They should be fairly compensated for that. Not get rich off it, but there should be some compensation there, as well as the cat companies should get a rental fee for the cats and stuff. And then there's lodging and all that stuff. So, Cutter's Camp or NSA, it's already expensive. And then if you tack another week of expenses onto that and more travel,
right,
it's already something people don't want to send people to because of the expense. And then, so we hit so many bumps in the road as far as trying to get training done, whether it's a camp like that you could send somebody to, or even when I worked for Pistenbully, being available or people being receptive to you offering training to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you think that's how it kind of moves forward though? Do you think that revamping how the training process looks in the seat, whether it's from a manufacturer's point of view or from an event like Cutters or a reinvention or a relaunch of a new kind of training situation, is that one of the answers maybe? Revamping that piece, going back and kind of figuring out how we make it more accessible?
It's all the above.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they need to do a lane tracks license like you have to get in New Zealand.
Mm.
Yeah,
that,
I mean
that would push the resorts to put more into the training, you know.
I would say that for sure. So you're saying exactly the truth there. Like when I was with PB, like my experiences in Europe and Canada, I never got to go to New Zealand and Australia and stuff, but plenty of time in Canada and Europe, and those guys, like, not just the operators but the mechanics, if somebody's working on something, they're properly trained on how the thing they're fixing actually works and what role it plays in the entire system. And the majority of people in this country are trained to be parts changers or they're operators who don't understand at all how their machine works. I'm not saying every operator needs to be a mechanic or every mechanic needs to be an operator, but both of those jobs are able to be performed so much better when they understand one another's jobs.
100%.
So to me, like, one of the simplest things is both manufacturers make machines with very smart computers in them and touch screens and all that. And why the hell there's not a how-to video in the machine? So when you're like, what the hell does this button do again? You can pull up the how-to video and scroll right to that part and watch this, or watch, shitty snow conditions, try these couple tiller settings, or hey, don't lift your front wheel out of the snow when you're having trouble climbing. Like, pull back on the joystick a little bit. You put your track on the ground. You'll actually go up the hill.
Yeah, like the consumption of what it is to troubleshoot stuff. A lot of people just pull out their phone nowadays and go for it. Or they're calling somebody if nothing else, instead of looking at YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. But there should be essentially a YouTube video built into each machine.
Be sick.
The operator's guide and all that stuff should be right there on the touchscreen. Why the fuck it's still a book? I don't know.
I tell you one thing. When I had to start fixing my own machines, is when I truly learned how I should operate that machine.
Yeah.
Those Kingvale years because before that, man, we were at Heavenly. There's 25 cats. This one broke. Get me another one.
Dude, when we used to build at Heavenly, if we were going to do a day build, the park was pretty far away from the cat shop. So if it was Day and I going to do a day build, we would bring at least 3 cats and sometimes 4, because we knew that. And it's not that like we were smashing them and snapping frames. It's just like, it was always dumb stuff, like you couldn't double click your joystick to lift your tiller anymore, or whatever. It was always like a dumb electrical problem or whatever. But inevitably, there was always a cat that went down. So if we wanted to both be productive all day long, we would just bring 3 or 4 cats for the 2 of us to work all day.
Oh, gosh, I remember those cats. You'd start to lose track speed and you bang on the screen and you'd get it back because the screen would go dim.
Yeah.
Man, 3 or 4 cats. That's heavenly, pun intended. Yeah.
Yeah.
Heavenly situation.
Yeah.
Look, I just, this is amazing. I'm already having a blast, like having you guys unpack a ton of stuff. I don't think that there is a way that you can truly express the value in seat time other than to just advocate for it constantly. We've had other people express that as well who've come on the show. Mike Bonnell especially. Okay, show me your simulator and I'll take you up to the top of Kirkwood and we'll hook up to the steepest shit I got that I can hook up to, and you tell me if you need your simulator anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reality is that exposure to things like that are going to train you, because you're going to learn how to adjust from whatever the mistake is that comes up, for sure. and it's a reactional situation when somebody doesn't know what to do, or maybe you're short-staffed one night and you got to train somebody how to run this machine really quick. But hey, we can have conversations like we're having right now that are very similar to the bar conversations that you can have at Cutter's Camp on a on a podcast. So how do you on site create something that maybe people don't have to buy to get into, but that a resort is maybe excited to develop in house, you know? Because the value in training people is, you know, not only are you making training cool, you're making safety cool. You're showing people what they can do in the future with machines if they get excited about trying to run a winch or getting some yellow iron stuff like a D6 or a D9. I mean, it's endless.
Yeah.
But then you're talking about money too. Again.
Well, that's what I was about to bring up. Is it's hard to entice a guy to come and learn to drive a snowcat for minimum wage.
Yeah.
As cool as they are, you got to be like infatuated with that machine, which I was, you know. But I mean, this season coming up, there's still groomers out there starting at whatever their minimum wage is in their area, and that's a lot of machine and a lot of responsibility and very little training. And if I could solve that problem, I'd probably be doing better in life right now.
Well,
but
go ahead.
I'll tell you what though, like, you know, kind of what you're hinting at, Parker, is like making it cool. It'll never be cool. Maybe it will. I guess I'm old and ignorant.
No, I don't. I agree with you. I don't think it ever will be cool, which is why, like, I want to talk about it.
But the reality of it is, there has to be a way to bridge the gap of the perception of it, right? Because I ran about it all the time. If you know me well enough, you know I talk about the tough guy show of the ski industry and how much I'm so fucking sick of it, and I don't want people to go through what we all had to go through.
Yeah.
You know, but the tough guy show is, I'm not going to ask for help. Like I said earlier, I was that person for a long time too, and people need to want to learn, right? So when I worked for PB, do you know how hard it is to demo a cat that, like, it's amazing. Like, it's a brand new cat. You go to a resort and they have a fleet of a bunch of, you know, maybe not crazy old cats, but just some tired, worn out cats or whatever. And like, you give them an opportunity to run a brand new machine that they've never run before, make their monotonous life a little bit interesting for a couple of nights and stuff, and they have zero interest in it because of the insecurities that the machine is going to make them look bad.
Yeah, we take them out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. You're taking them out of their comfort zone. They have their own insecurities that everyone thinks I'm the best cat operator at this resort.
Right.
And I don't want them to know that I'm really not. That's what's going on inside. And none of it fucking matters. But it's all of the insecurity that the machine's going to make you look bad. So everyone goes, no, I don't have time for that. I got too much to do. I just don't. No, I like these. I don't want to even give it a try.
Yeah.
Why would you not? You mow the lawn every single night. Why would you not want to try a brand new $400,000 machine?
Yeah.
And try, you know, and have that on your resume.
Yeah, but sometimes
I have a little bit of time in that.
Sometimes it's because you pulled up to a Ford dealership in a Chevy.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's what I'm getting at. Like,
you know,
why, you know, we got to get over ourselves with that, the tough guy stuff.
It's a topic that gets brought up on your podcast a lot, and that's ego. And for some reason, our industry is very weighted in that world. And I don't completely understand why. And I don't have a solution for it, but
yeah, well, and granted, you're talking to two guys who made it through the tough guy show,
right?
You know, so like we've been there and done that, and you know, like I get an attitude about it. Like, I don't want to put people through it. My guys that I work with hear me rant about it often enough, but also at the same time, if you want to play tough guy with me, I'll run you the fuck over. I don't want to do that to people, and I don't, you know. But there again, we're, you know, like, you had to make it in the day where all of us and a lot of the people you've had on the podcast to make it through what we all had to make it through to get to where we all are today, wherever that may be, you had to be a pretty damn type A personality and not care at all when you were stepping on people's toes, and that's the only way that we were able to do it. It's
Do you think
to this day?
Do you think maybe instead of trying to frame it as training cool or relevant or however the perspective needs to be spun so that it can be examined, do you think it maybe, because I know you and I have talked a little bit about this offline, but how do you gain respect as a terrain park individual? I know that's been talked about briefly a little bit by some of the folks on the podcast, but it seems to be kind of a common theme of, oh, well, you're just a park guy. And then you got vice versa where the park guy is going, or gal or person is going, well, you're just a flat tracker or an alpine groomer, and like you're talking about Day, the ego piece. And it's like, if you could get the cohesiveness to come together and actually stick like glue, I think you would probably see a lot of these ideas that we're discussing come to fruition. But I mean, that's just maybe my take on it.
The only place that I've ever seen those roles reversed is between like the park department and the rest of the mountain is Corinthia.
Really?
Well, because there the park guys got, especially as Corinthia was building up, they were getting new cats, and so the rest of the fleet is like, well, they only take care of those guys, and it was kind of like a little bit of a role reversal for the first time for me, because usually the park guys are the guys that get the leftovers, or they're just park guys, that kind of attitude, where at Corinthia those guys were creating such a great thing. Like, they were more on the pedestal than the flat groomers.
Wow. Which
was a different spin for me,
Yeah, that's a totally different spin. I've never been around anything like that before. Yeah.
Well, the team show is awesome because I just put you both on mute while I took a piss. I didn't even know.
Oh, sick. Yeah, there he goes. Always never having to ask for help, always going on his own.
Yeah, that a boy.
Oh, dude. We've already unpacked a whole bunch, and we still got a lot more to cover. So who knows how long this episode will really be. But and a lot of what's been discussed is really current and relevant things. The past is definitely history that we can look at for trends that are good, bad, negative, indifferent. But oftentimes I think some of the stuff that we don't discuss is who we are, because both of you guys are definitely people outside of the industry. And you probably do other stuff besides think about terrain parks and snowcats and grooming and pushing snow. So this is a question secretly I'm excited to get an answer from both of you on, and we can go back to talking about horses and cycling if we need to. But I wanted to know really what defines the both of you outside of the snow industry, and if you were not doing what you're doing right now for a job, what would your dream job be?
So, dream job, man, that's a really tough one. I don't know that I have a dream job. I feel like I've been doing, and this is going to sound really cheesy, but I have been doing my dream job for the better part of my career. Because it was what I always wanted to do as a kid, as soon as I discovered it. I would have to say, if I had to jump industries though, Jay and I've both helped with some movie stuff, and just the times at Kingvale that we would help like do the Jackass 3D movie and all that stuff. That work really interests me because it reminds me of ski resort work, where every day is a new challenge and you have to solve the problem. Whether it's building something over here for this, and I'm not talking snow related at all. I'm just saying those key grip guys and those guys that run those crews, it's they come to you and go, hey, we need this to film this, and you have to create it out of thin air.
Yeah.
And to me that would be a really fun dream job, and they make good money.
So you're going down the road of just staying creative. Like, is that what really defines you outside of the snow industry? Like, however you're doing it, you just want to be you?
Yeah, I mean, I went to school to be a graphic designer, and I was always heavy in art. And I mean, I used to oil paint. I mean, I was a heavy art geek for a long time, and it just kind of got channeled into parks and mechanical stuff. So the metal fab side of me is very strong. I always feel this need to do something with metal. And then the smaller, softer side of me is I like to garden.
Sick.
Ooh.
What do you
Yeah.
what are you growing these days?
I got everything, man. I got tomatoes, I got squash, I got beans, I got cucumbers. We do a ton of tomatillos.
Damn.
We got a house red salsa, we got a house verde salsa. And we do a ton of like vacuum sealing and freezing. So, and I just enjoy the hell out of it. You know, it's a very peaceful thing to go out there and water your garden.
Wow.
I'll go with rainbows and unicorns. Like I said earlier, a daughter that's going to be 8 in a month or so, and another one that's 3.5. And they're my world. That's what I do. I'd much rather spend time with them than do anything else. And I'd much rather take a run with my 7-year-old on the beginner slope than get any pow turns or ride the park or anything like that. I just get, it's so awesome that she's on a snowboard now. She took a year of ski lessons as well, but she's been snowboarding for 4 years now, and she's not great by any means. She doesn't weigh enough to be very good on her snowboard. She's a toothpick, but it's so cool to ride a chairlift with my daughter and have her have fun doing it. That's what like to me, I was a kid. I describe myself as a kid who grew up throwing rocks at cars in New Jersey, like and
Shit.
I know
But
you put them in the gas tank.
yeah, well, I did that too, but yeah, I was a shitty kid. But like, I literally, I didn't know this life existed. I had no idea. I didn't grow up skiing, didn't have any exposure to it at all, and just knew people who worked, knew people. I got in a lot of fights and all that, and I didn't know this life existed. And when I did see things like this, it was on TV, and everything on TV is fake, And so I just want to expose my daughters to everything I can that I didn't know existed, so that they know they have a choice. I don't care if they snowboard or ski or bike or live in Lake Tahoe or go live in a city. I just want them to know that they have choices. I didn't know that I had choices. I'm lucky I didn't end up in jail doing the things, the direction I was headed and stuff, and I think a lot of us are who are in our side of the industry have been through parts of their lives like that. A lot of people you've had on have spoken about that. Certainly my life hasn't been as dark as some, and it's been darker in other places. But and for the dream job thing, a fighter pilot.
No way. Wow.
That's good.
That's a good. Wow.
I mean, like I wasn't exposed to machines as a kid and stuff, but man, I love running stuff. And what amazing machines those are. And how the hell can anything in your life ever be remotely enjoyable after flying a fighter jet?
Yeah.
you win.
Yeah,
you win, buddy.
I mean, like, what's more fun in a cat than when you're like teetering on the edge of something, or hanging your track, or just teetering on the breakover, and all those things, like running your cat on the edge of what it can do, and understanding those limitations, and then times that by 1,000 in a fighter jet. Like I can only imagine. And
well, little known fact too, that Jay went to school to work on airplanes.
Ooh, yeah.
You did do that.
I did.
What, you were fueling airplanes, right? Is that what the gig was, or what were you doing?
I went to college being an A&P mechanic, which is certified to work on airframes and power plants for helicopters and airplanes.
Sick.
And yeah, I fueled airplanes at Newark Airport for a little while I was doing that.
That is awesome. Yeah, very little known fact for sure. I imagine this though. It's like, hey, Do you want to come ride in my fighter jet?
Yeah, way cooler than hey, good looking. You want to come for a ride in my snowcat?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll park it in the way of the sun later and take a picture.
I say we jump into the push road question of the day.
The push road question of the day.
That is right, the push road question of the day. And today's segment is sponsored by Mount Bachelor. If you're looking for an operator job and you want to be a part of the team there, make sure you head over to www.mtbachelor.com. Look for their jobs link, send them an application, talk to Dustin Smith. But Timmy Hay is your first push road question. And Timmy asks, how did the men's club end up sending their limo to pick up party goers or riders from Kingvale?
Did that really happen? Well, I'll take this one, Jay.
Yeah, you got this.
Yeah. So I had this genius idea of going after sponsorships that no ski resort would touch or could even talk to, and one of them was a strip club in Reno. And I convinced
all the strip clubs in Reno different years.
Yeah. Well, it was two.
I think there was three, maybe.
Well, maybe one changed ownership, but
yeah.
So I got the pro team. The pro team had satin jackets with their names on them.
Wow.
And we would give them snowboards for raffles like twice a month, and they'd give us a giant tab. And it was a good time. I'm not going to dive too deep into that one. I don't remember the limo pickup though.
Yeah.
Was it like Mark Frank or somebody? I don't.
Yeah.
I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Timmy, good question. Yeah, definitely.
It was a good question, Timmy.
Yeah, definitely a good
shared
question.
A few stories with him that
work. Wow, man. Well, Colin Hales has weighed in, and so he's got a push road question for you too. Colin asks, can you tell us about your experience with gas and diesel fuel in Germany, and specifically which one is green?
Well, yeah, I sure can. So I'll preface with, I don't drink, and it's not because I'm better than anyone. I just choose not to drink, and it's not because it was a drinking problem or whatever. But so I don't drink. So inevitably, I end up being the designated driver. I was Dave's personal drunk chauffeur for several years of my life. So regardless,
some of your best years, bud.
When you go over to Germany with customers, you drink a lot and stuff, and I don't drink, so I'm the driver. And on my first trip over to Germany, I was fortunate enough to go. Jeb pulled some strings and was able to get me on the trip too, because we brought an extra customer from our territory, and it was actually anyway. So I'm driving. All the customers went home, and all of us from the sales department were staying for a few extra days to do some other stuff while we were over there. So now I'm driving a van full of drunk salesmen who are all type A personalities, who all think I'm going the wrong way. And shouldn't we say, this is taking us, shouldn't we go over there? And they're all
my God.
Right. And then then it gets traffic, and the GPS just keeps, it's like, this is like 2011 or something. So the GPS isn't that great. It's got a little bit of a delay, and it seemed like everywhere it told me to turn, the gas stations are all super busy on the Autobahn, and so waiting in line, I pull in, there's a few cars in front of me. All those dudes jump out and run inside to go piss. I had to piss really bad too, but I had to wait by the van. I finally get up to the pumps, and our van is diesel. In America, diesel is green nozzle and black is gas. And in Europe, black is diesel and green is gas. And so I grab the green handle, stick it in the tank, and I run inside to take a leak. And I come back out, and Paul, the salesman from Minnesota, he's like, Jay, I'll give you a break. Why don't you relax in the back? And I'm like, cool, Paul, you drive. We don't even make it like a half a mile down the road, and the van is barely running. And I was like, what's going on? What's going on? And we realized what I probably did. And yeah, so then we make it to the next exit and get off, and the van is just like fucking sputtering. And we find this old gas station that's not a gas station anymore. And we pull in the parking lot, and we're like, fuck, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And so most of the salesmen it's like Jeb and Colin and Josh Nelson and everybody's mechanics as well, or spent half their careers as mechanics before they came salesmen. So we start rummaging around. We find a garden hose. We find a parking cone and the chafing dish, and
Holy
so we're
shit!
Trying to siphon gas out of a diesel tank and into the chafing dish, and we're like Colin's like holding the parking cone, or we're pouring the chafing dish into it and using the parking cone as a funnel into the bucket. And the van, it's like this Volkswagen van, and it's got an anti-siphon device, and so I just have to keep sucking on gas, man. And I swallowed so much gas getting the gas out of that tank.
Oh.
And Dennis, the head of sales, gets a ride from the cops. See us. And he gets a ride from the cops to this gas station, and there's these kids that live in the gas station we're at. Their dad's a mechanic, but he's not home, and so they're like watching us and heckling us. These like 10-year-old kids. And Dennis comes back from the gas station with 1 gallon or whatever, however many liters that is, 1 little gallon can, right? And we have to get to the gas station to get more diesel in. And we get everything out, and it's running now. The gas station closes at like 8:00 or whatever, and it's like 5 minutes to 8, and we have like 3 liters of diesel to get us there, and we're trying to go the right way. And I broke the fucking GPS already, and
oh my god!
And we got there, and we got diesel, and we're all covered in gas, and I'm inside the gas station trying to like wash my hands, which is pointless because my clothes are soaked in fucking gas. But anyway, yeah.
Wow.
So that's that story. So.
Damn.
So yeah, the in Europe it's backwards, and gas is green and diesel is black. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You never told me that one, man. That's a good one.
Oh, I thought I told you that one. Yeah,
No.
I told that one a lot. Maybe I missed telling it to you, but
Yeah,
that's a good one.
That is a
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
That
and
is a good one.
I mean, everybody pitched in, but it was my fault, so I made sure I swallowed more gas than anybody else
Yeah.
on
Wow.
that deal.
Good
Wow.
on you, bud.
Well
Yeah.
Good on
done.
you.
Yeah. The cherry on the top was the precursor of the GPS being broken and then needing it later. That is fucking hilarious. Wow.
Yeah, and like I think it was like 3 months later, Dennis, the head of sales, calls me in the office, and he's like, "Yeah, there's a charge from Germany. The rental car company found the GPS." It's like, yeah, I think it was $300 that I had to pay. Like, yeah, I'll pay for that. That's my fault.
Wow.
I mean, Dennis was in the van with me, so he knows I did it.
Yeah. There was a moment in time where at Mountain Creek, and you reminded me of the name because I had to piece it together, but it's like pre-Mountain Creek days. Obviously there was a PowerPoint presentation that's been presented through, I think, several PNSAA, just mountain meetings that I went to over the years. Class Action Park was one of the items that you reminded me of with a name, and I had forgotten all about that. I remember the slide with the loop at the bottom and all the stuff that was just sketchy. But at the same token, what do you got for stories? It didn't even have to be about any of the rides. I just would like to know, and I'm sure everybody else would, just stories from that era.
Yeah, well, I mean, to preface it, it all sounds fake. It all sounds like made up bullshit. but it's all true, and it's crazy. A lot of people out there have probably seen it was on HBO Max last year, I believe, the Class Action Park movie. It's not even like 25% of what it was like there. It sounds so fake, but and there's just stories after stories after stories after stories that are unbelievable. I got a couple I can share with you real quick. First off, the looping water slide only ever ran 3 days in the 6 years that I worked there.
Wow.
I got to work it, but I stood at the bottom of it when you came out, and it messed with your inner ear as you went around the loop. So as you came out of the bottom, your center of gravity was all fucked up mentally, and it was my job to keep you from standing up when you got in the pool at the bottom, because you'd stand up and raise your hands, be like, "Yeah, it was awesome," and you had no idea until the water slapped you in the face that you were falling over sideways the whole time.
Wow.
Literally, like 1 out of 30 people could stand up and walk away. Everyone else had to sit there for 30 seconds or a minute before they could actually walk away without falling over. But it was so hilarious to watch people. They would just stand up and be like, "Yeah, it was awesome," and they had no idea they were falling over until they hit the water. And then it was also my job if you watch that movie, they talk about it. It was a steel tube lined with foam, so glued inside, and then eventually it would start to separate and a blister would form, and it would prevent people from making it all the way around the loop. And then you'd get stuck in the bottom of the loop. You'd slide back down to the bottom until when you didn't come out, I'd walk over and there was a little hatch with a little 4-inch porthole window in it. And I'd look in the window and there'd be somebody with their arms crossed staring up at me with this holy shit look on their face. And I'd open the door and let them climb out. Pretty hilarious.
Oh my God. Wow.
So my very first night as a lift supervisor, I started as a lift attendant in 91. And I think this was probably 93 when I was a lift operations supervisor. My very first night, I'm in the office with the operations manager, good friend of mine, and they hear on the radio this signal 2, and he jumps out of his chair and he's like, "Holy shit, let's go!" And I was like, it was signal 2 at the triple chair, and he's running out of the office. He's like, "Let's go!" And I'm running after him. I'm like, "What's a signal 2?" And he's like, "Fight!" And we get on our snowmobiles and we ride down to the triple chair, and there's this dude there, 2 guys and a big crowd of people because there's always big lift lines at night, and just one dude's holding his mouth and there's blood everywhere, and this dude got all of his teeth kicked out, all of his front teeth kicked out with a ski boot.
Wow.
Because these two guys were fighting. The one guy pushed the other guy really hard, and when he stepped forward to push him, he went down on the one knee, and the other guy saw his opportunity and wound up and booted him right in the face and kicked all of his teeth out.
Holy
and then,
shit.
But the best part was we get them both back up to the lodge, and security's down there, and security's got the guy who did the kicking, and we're with the EMTs and the guy with no teeth. And the guy who kicked the other guy told the security guard, "I just got to go tell my wife what's going on. I'll be right back." And he got in his fucking car and left.
Wow.
Once we realized this happened, the other guy's holding his mouth, and there's still blood pouring out of his mouth. And he's like, "Who's going to pay for my fucking teeth?" That was my first night ever as a lift supervisor.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And you came back the next day.
Oh yeah, dude. You didn't know there was anything different, dude. And if you've seen that Class Action Park movie, you wonder what was going on with the employees and stuff. How could they, you just didn't know, dude. So it was a couple towns over from where I went to high school, and yeah, I got a job at Action Park. And it was Vernon Valley in the winter. I got a job so I could learn to snowboard better for free, and eventually I was in charge of the bungee tower. We had a bungee tower that had 4 wings on it, and you could jump 4 people at a time. We're the busiest bungee tower in the world. And we also had a slingshot ride, which is like there's one in Reno here. It's like a reverse bungee where two people are strapped in. You've probably seen it before. Two people are strapped in and they stretch bungee cords up like 100 feet, and then you go like 120 feet in the air. So we had one of those, and I was in charge of that too. And you big crowds of people, and you get the two people strapped into their harnesses and tension the cords up, and you start your big countdown, before you pull the lever to launch them, and you get down to like 3 and 2, and then I'd throw a big bolt out on the stage, and they go like, hold on, and I'd run out there and I'd pick it up and I'd walk around with the bolt in my hand, and the people in the harnesses would be like shitting a brick. What's that? And I'd just hold the bolt up and I'd be like, oh, that's good, stand up, and just fucking shoot them up in the air. They'd be screaming their heads off. And we fucked with people pretty hard there, dude.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm a better person than that. I like to think.
We were all young.
Yeah, we were all young once, that's for sure. Holy cow. Damn. Well, that was huge. Further insight on the class action park with the trapdoor and the loop-de-loop slide. Yeah, that was pretty funny too.
Yeah.
I can only imagine you walking up on people and them being like, "What the fuck?" I didn't make it. I didn't make it. Yeah. I didn't get through my loop. Yeah. I didn't get it. I do have. I mean, this episode is loaded with some really cool special guest questions. I'm super grateful for everybody that's contributed, and our next special guest question comes from. I got a couple from him, so we're gonna run through all three. I'll play the first one though for you. It's from Joe Genovese.
Parker, Blade Dive. Day, Jay. It's a great day for hay. Thanks for having me on. You guys are legends, obviously. Can't wait to hear the show. Day, quick question for you. I told my side of the story about the sea box, which I think is correct. But I'd like to hear your story about how that came to be and, how it was invented in that Mountain High parking lot and, now as a park staple worldwide. It's a pretty incredible feat. Not many people can say that. Yeah, go for it, man.
It's good to hear from Joe. I still talk to Joe regularly. He was, because him and I came from Virginia together at a little known place called Mammoth Mountain. But that original sea box story, the way I remember it was, I don't even know if Joe was there that day, but maybe he was. But me and another dude, this kid Brad Harper, who was, fairly well-known sponsored kid for quite a long time, was working with us out there, and we just made a rainbow box. Because up until that point, if you think about parks back then, like the kind of most innovative thing was a rainbow rail or a rainbow box. And I remember we cut the templates for it, and I threw them over in the parking lot, and the curves were laying down. And that's all it took was, like, I looked at it and was like, I looked at Brad, I think, and was like, what do you think about a box that went, like, curved? And he's like, well, if you could lock into it, it'd work. And that's where it all started, at least from what my memory is. It was a long time ago, but yeah, I think that's it.
Well, was that in the parking lot at Mountain High, or was that the Super Park parking lot?
No, the very first one was at Mountain High.
Gotcha.
And it was way smaller than the one we did at Super Park. And when we ended up at Super Park, it was only a couple months later, and that feature had been going off for us at Mountain High. So we were like, we got to do one of these, So we, and then the Super Park one that was a long night. I'm pretty sure we did it in the dark because we didn't want anybody to see it until we pulled it out and put it on snow.
Wow. Well, and then just to talk about the Super Park days a little bit more for a second. So obviously, when Joe came on the show and talked about his experiences and what he's been up to then and now, the opportunity for Mountain High to kind of jump on board and do that Super Park event was a bit of a last minute thing, right? From memory?
Oh yeah, we were the Bad News Bears. I mean, realistically, we were two kids from Virginia who'd been building park in Virginia and had been out west for one season and ended up at Super Park. So I mean, our minds were just blown, and really the only reason we ended up there is because somebody else opted out at the last minute and they panicked, and we were the closest other one in Southern California, so we ended up there.
Wow. Yeah. When he told me that, I had no idea that was the case. And so to hear that, and then know about the Sea Box now and its creation at Mountain High, and then how it got plugged in at Super Park by random occurrence that they needed a filler, really, and you guys ended up there. And that was up in was that Breck or was that Canada?
That was Breck, and it was. I mean, it. I don't know. It changed my outlook on everything that we were doing. I mean, to be in a cat next to Elliot Cohn and those guys and Eric Rosenwald, and back then, I mean, it was a good time, and it was cool to see everyone's different take on everything, because this is Cutter's Cup era too.
Yeah.
And we had 3 10-hour shifts of grooming to build our zone. And then I think we had 10 hours of welding, and that's all you got for your zone. So I miss Cutter's Cup. I thought that was a lot of fun. It reminded me of this crazy British show called Junkyard Wars, where they go and grab stuff from junkyards and have to like build amphibious boats and random stuff.
I could see that coming back and being trendy again. Slush. Just saying.
Right.
Well, I want to know this too, and I mean, Jay, you can weigh in here yourself, but Super Park, and one of those things, just hitting it with a quick stint of a question. How maybe did that event early on help either expose you to things that were quintessential in your future, kind of going back to that, or maybe how did it change how you looked at snowboarding and the industry for the negative, with all that spotlight that was on it?
I thought it was amazing in the beginning, I mean, the whole time. But that's all we did, right? I've never considered myself very innovative or anything like that. I've always thought I was just copying what everybody else was doing my entire career. I mean, even when I was first doing parks at Vernon Valley back in the day, it was like stuff I was seeing in the videos I could see, and when I would take random trips up to Stratton and stuff and see what they were trying to build up there, and then trying to emulate some of that stuff down in New Jersey, and so again, it's all pre-social media and pre-real internet stuff, or the internet was barely a thing, so it was like
very true.
Any content you could see from what everyone else was doing, I used to love watching like the Mac Dog movies and see what was going on down at Snow Summit and stuff, and try to build a spine like I saw, or what, that's what it all was. So I thought it was awesome to see, like what Dave was talking about. And when you had Steve Petrie on talking about it too, like to see all those guys from all those different resorts culminating in, these are the best guys doing the best stuff. And it really was. And I thought it was rad when hearing Steve Petrie talk about his perspective. He was hoping to learn something going down to Breck to be a part of Super Park and stuff, because he didn't think Whistler had their act together. And I remember when that issue came out being like, and Whistler's there and they're amazing and they care about their stuff and they throw so much money at it, and it's cool to but
I think it was also a super fast track for progression for park builders, to get them together like that, and then the mag would come out, and then all the other ones that weren't there saw it, and they all are going, man, I'd love to go do that, and it just helped push that progression and see, wow, look at that spine they made. It's so perfect, especially back then, that kind of thing, I think, just really helped drive the progression of how we were all doing things.
Yeah. And Super Park as an event was a platform. I mean, it was a career elevator. It was definitely an exposure piece for the people that were there and participating in it. Well, we've kind of unpacked a small portion of what it was to kind of build those big features back then and see kind of where the industry is now, focusing on progression and the barrier of entry, if we want to use that buzz phrase, and accessibility and introduction, all these words to cultivate the next generation to get excited about terrain parks. But I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing that we were there in the past building all of these large features. That's what the industry was, right? You were just talking about it. It's the progression and pushing things further and further and further. But do you think that those large features in the construction were inevitably a part of the reason why we're here right now with reintroducing snowboarding to that next generation? It's kind of like going too big, maybe?
Yeah, this was tough for me because I never went down the big jump road very often, man. Those were very early years for me, and I don't know what was going on in my head, but I very early recognized that was not for everyone. And I love hitting a big jump back in the day, but I just kind of knew always that it wasn't for every single customer, you know, and we all kind of did the measuring, and we all went as big as we could on your perspective hill, you know. I mean, we definitely built the biggest jump we could in Virginia at the time. You know, I'm sure Jay had a story about that at Mountain Creek, you know, or Vernon Valley back in the day. You know, but I have done my whole park career watching skateboarding because I feel like we were birthed from skateboarding, and they're 20 years ahead of us. And a lot of their progression has mirrored our progression, in my opinion, on different scales. But I've always thought that terrain parks should look like a skate park. And I'm not saying every tranny needs to be 6 feet, but I'm saying, you know, it needs to be scaled up. But and I feel like a lot of these flow parks and you know, and the Holy Bully style stuff is kind of emulating skate parks that guys in the Northwest have been building out of concrete for 20 years. The beauty of our palette is it's malleable and we can change it daily. You know, the concrete parks you can't. So I've always thought that going big was not the answer. And I think that if you go back and watch some of that Kingvale stuff, we were always more skatey and big plazas with 20 features on it and you know, transitions. And we always liked the fact that somebody was really good could find a way to go big on a setup like that. But then someone who wasn't as good as them could still have fun on the smaller stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
I agree with everything Dave's saying. You know, I went further down the big jump road than he ever did, mainly because I always sucked ass at skating, and I was not a very good snowboarder either, but I was way better at snowboarding than I ever was at skating. I was horrible at skating. But, like, for me, it's a double-edged sword, right? Like, I don't think the ginormous jumps, having 90-foot jumps in your park and stuff like that, which some people did in those days, I don't think that's where we need to be. But I also don't like where the industry is right now. We've seen this before where we went too big and then pulled back, and here we are again. You know, I've always had this analogy, like, forever ago now. Feels like forever to me. Like, half pipe became an Olympic sport, and it wasn't when it became an Olympic sport, but now half pipe is like luge. How do you get into luge, right? And how do you get into half pipe? I don't even know how you get into that anymore. right? It has a snowboard. You do it. It is snowboarding. I'll give it that. But like, it's such an elevated sport. It's become all the other Olympic sports, where you don't even know how people get exposed to those sports, and how do you get exposed to Olympic level of half pipe riding? You know,
Right.
but conversely, like, there's this other part of me that's like, terrain parks can't just get super small and nothing, right? Like, to me,
Right.
the big resorts who always put money into their parks and made the rest of us struggle to keep up with them, right? Like, it's the same with the rest of their terrain. So I use the local example here of what's now called Palisades Tahoe. Last week it was called Squaw Valley. Most of their customers at Palisades Tahoe make pizza and french fries down the mountain route.
Yeah.
Right? And when they do that, they go past KT 22, right? And they go, someday I might be able to do that.
Yeah.
Resorts that are that big and have the funding should support programs that have progression to the top level to give something to achieve. That's what makes skiing and snowboarding what it is. That's what people are pursuing. The enjoyment of it all is, I got better today, right? And so the trend we're on now is making everything super family friendly and super safe, and downplay everything and downsize the funding for everything, and smaller, and not to achieve what Dave's talking about, but just to, like, families are where the money is. But families are only where the money is if you keep them there, and you need to have the something for them to progress to next. You know,
yeah, but all the marketing meetings I sit through say that the 13-year-old is who's deciding where they're going skiing.
Yeah, exactly. And how many 13-year-olds think a 20-foot jump's big enough?
I would say 0.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But all the risk managers and everything nowadays, that's what everybody's pushing. You know, and I'm not saying, again, it shouldn't be crazy big, but you know, there has to be progression, and it is the kids who decide where you're going, and it is the kids who want to see the cool stuff happening, even if they're just making pizza and french fries next to it. You know,
I've always just tried to achieve both levels in the same park, if that makes sense. Like I said, of it's like, because you weren't big into skating, man, but you go to a skate park with some really good guys, and they'll find lines in there that you never even imagined could happen. And they'll find big gaps, and they'll find things that the average person doesn't even see. And
yeah, no, for sure. And that does the exact same thing I'm talking about. That exposes them to, oh wow, there's more to that than even I thought there was. And so it's the same thing, whether you're riding by a more advanced feature or you watch somebody with a more advanced eye ride the feature you're riding in a different way. But not just the downsizing of features, but the fact that features are so spaced out in a lot of these parks and so mellow, and not many options on how to ride this stuff. It's the dumbing down of all of it. It's too much. And first day on a snowboard, let's put you on a fun box. I think for the right people, it helps them progress better. But to me, it puts a whole lot of people who would never choose to ever be in a terrain park, who drive cubicles all day long, all week long, and come up on the weekends. And they're the kind of people who sue. And we're sort of forcing them into the terrain parks when they might have, no matter how good they ever got at skiing and snowboarding, might have never chose to go into one, or may have waited several years down the road to ever go into one. But now we're putting people who view risk in a different way than all of us who grew up falling off bicycles and skateboards.
Well, yeah. Well, here's the thought too. Just are we as individuals who are either at the very top rung that you can be with making decisions to implement practices that would either provide a progression ladder, or like Dave's talking about, with an even keeled symmetrical situation of being able to find lines that you never maybe had thought didn't exist or did exist. and you're bringing up a really good point there, Jay, with respect to just risk, not only from the user standpoint, but is the industry as a whole, do you think that we are, it's kind of fear that's driving that? Are we putting more of a kind of a by design veil over what it is that has a wider potential of becoming something actually as to what it should be, blossoming into more of that skate environment because we're afraid of people kind of pointing the finger?
Oh, yeah. I do have I have a take on that. I think that a lot of this knee-jerk reaction has to do with dwindling numbers, in my opinion. Yeah. And I think it's a grasp at how do we get them back in there.
With respect to numbers and population, you've got, let's just split the two apart. Numbers at ski resorts have nothing to do with populations in towns. Let's go there and separate the two. Is it a messaging thing, or are people literally seeing from afar that it's obviously more enticing to go and visit than it is to physically relocate themselves to be a part of a ski resort scene or town? I mean, that back in the day, it was this, and we've unpacked a little bit of this too in previous episodes. It was, you both did it. I did it. Everybody, there were a lot of people that we know in the industry that have done it, and you relocate because there's this love or there's this dream, where nowadays it seems as though it's almost more attractive to be remote or be disconnected, but in a meaningful way, so that you can actually work for somebody else instead of the ski resort and buy the pass. That seems to be kind of unfolding. I know that's kind of a deep, dark wormhole to go down, but another hot take that it would be interested to kind of have you both weigh in on if you want to.
I don't know, man. I've become the old guy, right? So I find myself being like kids today, or back in my day, and I hate that. But the generationally, people are different now.
Mm-hmm.
Like nowadays, you talk a lot about opportunities for people and stuff, and it's amazing to watch the younger generations right now that even the ones who are good employees and returning year after year employees that you're given responsibility to. I struggle to find anybody who wants this to be their career, or they're doing it for right now. It's not that they have another plan, but they're not trying to get the manager's job someday. They don't see it as somewhere they want to go. It's not that they're blatantly saying, I don't want your job, but they're certainly not trying to get it. They're content and they're learning what they can about what they're doing, and they're proactive people, and they care about what they're doing, and they care about each other and all that stuff. But it's so different than when we were coming up, or at least how I thought it was when I was coming up, and I felt like whenever I was always looking at the manager wanting to maybe have his job someday or her job, that there was always 5 other people I was competing with who were thinking the same thing. And I feel like right now nobody's competing.
Well, Jay, don't you think that some of that's got to do with the fact that, and like you said, it's generational, but the generations under us expect more quicker. And in our day, like you'd work 3 seasons of snowmaking just to touch a snowcat.
Yeah.
And now when I hire kids, like they want to be CEO by the end of the day. And if that doesn't happen, then they're just kind of like, well, there's like a lot that I have to do, and that's not really what I want to do.
No, for sure. It's different, and the expectations are different, and the social media has a lot to do with that and everything. I think,
Yeah.
And just the fact that everything seems cool and free, or cooler and freer than it was when we were coming up, and it seems like things should be handed to you the way that it's portrayed in social media, and when it's not just handed to you, if you have to earn it, there's quite a few people who are willing to do that, but they're not willing to do it for very long without any kind of reward.
Right.
Whereas like you said, we had to put in longer struggle and different struggle. You know, at least from our perspective, it seems like we worked harder at certain things, but you know,
in my day, I walked uphill to school both ways.
Yeah, and
yeah,
I do.
That's what we both sound like.
Yeah, I totally make fun of myself all the time because I'm like the grumpy old guy, you know. Like,
yeah, but seriously though, it's history, and it's important to look back at it. But when we look back at it, we're also at the same time examining what's happening right now, and you immediately put the two together. It's just human nature. I mean, you're examining either end of the spectrum to figure out how you're moving forward. I think we do that in everything.
The other side of it, though, is like I spend my life trying to make sure that no one has to do what I had to do.
There you go.
So I can't be bitter about the fact that they don't recognize what I went through.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
So, you know, I have to respect their perspective on it, and their perspective, based off their life and their experience, they are working hard, and it is a tough job and stuff.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
I can't belittle their opinion of what they're doing, you know?
Do you think some of it has to do with the fact that, and this probably isn't going to be a popular opinion, but that we're losing our coolness? I don't mean us individuals, but I mean as, because, you know, I don't have kids like you guys, but I've got nephews, and, you know, and they're all in the kind of same age bracket, and they have zero interest in action sports. I mean, zero. Skateboarding does not appeal to, you know, any of them. And they would much rather, you know, do circles on a hoverboard or Fortnite or whatever they're playing at the time. But is it because we're not, 20 years ago, we were this cutting edge sport that came out of nowhere or whatever. And now it's been through the ringer. It's on American Express commercials, Pepsi commercials. It's been to the Olympics. Everybody's seen it, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Yes. Like, to me, it's just like the wave the last 10 years of the amount of skiers in parks and stuff, and the amount of, just in general, the amount of kids that ski versus the prior 10 years where it seemed like every kid wanted to be on a snowboard. And then,
right.
Then all of a sudden, people who snowboarded had kids. And so the kids don't want to be like their parents, so the kids start skiing again. And my guys joke with me because most of our terrain park guys at Diamond Peak all ski. And so I make jokes once in a while with them. I'm like, I know all you kids today ski, and, you know, like, skiing's getting cool again, or, you know. But it's true. Like, that's a big part of it. You know, skateboarding and snowboarding were like these outcast things. Just like Day and I both grew up listening to heavy metal and stuff, right. And like, you know, you kind of crave that, or at least our personality types do, and so yeah, the cool edgy factor of it.
Yeah,
it's pretty it's pretty packaged up. It's nice and tidy and neat now, and clean, presentable. Going back to that kind of like family vibe you were mentioning, Day.
Yeah, our street cred is slowly fading.
Yeah, well, I never had any personally, but
I mean, as an industry, it was a joke. Yeah. Come on.
How we doing? Let's do 5. Quick 5.
Perfect.
Cool.
Okay. I don't need to hear you poop or anything. But...
No, I'll turn the mute button on. Okay, this is our first ever joint episode, and we are busting it up into 2 parts because there's a lot to talk about, and I wanted to make it digestible for everybody that's tuning in. So we're going to take that quick 5, and we will see you next week for part 2. You don't want to miss that one. It's a doozy. Also, I want to thank our sponsor for this week. Episode 34 is brought to you by Mount Bachelor. Mount Bachelor is hiring, and all their available jobs for operator positions, as well as the Terrain Park Day Crew, are going to be available on their website, mountbachelor.com. Follow the job link there. Head over to the job description that you want to read, apply, and hopefully you're talking to Dustin Smith. And as a reminder, too, I will be talking to Dustin next week for part 2 of Day Franzen and J. Rydd's episode 34. We're going to discuss the job openings that he has, what it's like to work for him as a manager, and what it's like to live and work in Bend. Okay, you know the deal. Don't be a dick. Please fill your machine with diesel at the end of your shift.